Hey, welcome investors to the 40 Finance channel. My name's Jeff Beers. Today we're looking at Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, aka TSM by its ticker symbol. This is a stock that I own and have had a relatively good amount of success with here just over the past 3 or 4 months as it's run up significantly, not only with the increased demand for chips, but also the technological advancements that TSM seems to be making, almost on a quarterly basis as you look ahead at their forecast. But the question for today's video is TSM a buy at its current share price of $138. We'll take a look at the fundamentals, the catalysts, and make a projection for the next couple years for TSM. Reminder, as always, that my stock picks and projections, they're just my opinion for your entertainment. Please make sure you do your own research before jumping into any stock. And of course, if you want to help me out on the 40 Finance channel, please subscribe, give this video a like. Thank you to everybody for all your support. All right, if you're not familiar with TSM, this is a worldwide leader in the manufacturing of semiconductors and integrated circuits. They have some very notable clients on their list, including Apple, AMD. They're starting to do more work with Intel. And the attraction with TSM from an investing standpoint is their foundries are some of the most advanced available in the world today. So from a competition standpoint, at the most advanced levels, you basically have TSM and Samsung, and then everyone else is more than a few steps behind. So when you invest in TSM stock like I have, you basically are getting a three-pronged approach to the market, right? You're getting some dividend, you're getting some growth, and you're staying in line with the technological advancements of society. This makes the stock very attractive from my perspective, but we also have to keep in mind that this is a manufacturer. So anytime that you are a manufacturer supplying to retailers, your cut of the profits is much slimmer than, say, like an AMD, who goes out and marks up their chips and components significantly for the end user. So AMD, NVIDIA, Apple, you name it, is marking their products up after receiving them from TSM. Now, luckily for TSM, as I mentioned before, they have very advanced technology to manufacture, so it's not very easy for customers to leave them and just jump ship to another provider. So their moat is very, very real, and it's based on continually pouring money into research and development to make sure that their processes are always at the top of the pecking order. Now, if you've watched the channel in the past, I always like to do some bull case versus bear case for each stock when I do these individual analysis. And I always start off with the bear case, and there are a couple distractions for TSM. No stock has a perfect story. No stock has an absence of challenges, and TSM is no exception. For starters, the big storm cloud, of course, is that they are in Taiwan. And Taiwan has had political conflict with China for a long time. And at the root of the issue for Taiwan and China is basically, is Taiwan a sovereign state? Does China have ruling capacity over Taiwan? The United States gets in this mix because it wants to protect the sovereign state status. And so at the end of the day, there is a looming possibility that China would try to invade Taiwan and essentially take it over by force. Now, that does seem fairly unlikely because it is expected that the United States and other countries would defend Taiwan, but just this whole storm cloud hanging over, plus you have the new Biden administration, and many people speculate on whether China would kind of test Biden's powers. We'll have to see. But that is something that is out there if you're an investor of TSM. Next up on the bear case is the fact that it is very expensive to run these foundries. And it's even more expensive to keep them technologically advanced, if you will. Many of you have probably seen the whole like nanometer debate that gets in with these circuits and semiconductors. That is the type of technology that TSM is powering, the smaller, more efficient. And each iteration of that, which TSM is now into like the 2 nanometer space that they're hoping to have up by 2023, each iteration of that, though, costs a ton of money to support at a massive scale. It's estimated that each new iteration costs about $1 billion in research and development, and I'm not even sure if that includes the construction cost to retrofit the existing foundries. So the manufacturing of chips is not a cheap business, particularly if you want to offer the latest and greatest technology. The other bear factor that's in play, at least right now, is demand is outstripping supply. So with Taiwan Semi, they've probably lost some profit last year just by not being able to provide all the chips that were needed. The auto industry in particular had a really weird 2020 because when the pandemic hit, they paused a lot of forward orders on chips. And then as we found out, coming into summer of 2020, demand for cars was actually much higher than many people anticipated. But by that time, most of the foundries had already pivoted those lost auto orders that were put on pause, and they ramped them into things like Apple and AMD, who were saying, great, we'll buy more and more and more because we're having a boom in our business. So miscalculation by the auto industry and then wanting to get back in when cars started to sell created this massive shortage, particularly on automobile chips. Throw in the fact that personal computers and phones are selling out the wazoo, and TSM has a good problem that they're probably selling, 100% of every chip they make, but you do have concerns on whether or not they lost a couple dollars by not being able to serve all the demands of their customers. Also on the demand side, you look ahead to 23 and 24, and you wonder, will this huge demand cycle start to settle down by then? And will they be at a place where they've ramped up all this capacity only to see demand take a step down by a couple paces? Then you're in the reverse world, which is you have more capacity than demand. That's speculation at this point. I personally think that chips and semiconductors are going to be in wide demand for several more years, only because new technology is replacing old technology at a faster clip. And then lastly, on the bear side, you have this sort of evolution of Samsung, who is really making inroads not only with the US, but all across the world on their chip production. So Samsung is a big competitor with TSM. I think right now, both of those companies are the only ones who can even offer what they're offering from a technology standpoint. But is there room for two in the long run? We'll have to see. Now, on the bull side for TSM, just understanding the competitive nature of this industry, particularly for a lot of their buyers, which is, Apple, AMD, Intel's inquiring if they can help. They make some stuff for NVIDIA, and basically every name you've ever heard of. That competition to provide the latest and greatest to retail consumers is, of course, a huge tailwind for TSM as far as booking long-term contract. Next, you have, of course, the 5G era and the massive changes going on in the automotive industry. Both those things by itself do one very important thing for TSM, and that is it spreads out their need to focus on just one industry, right? So if you look back even just, 10 years ago, personal computers, maybe data centers, that was the majority of your chips. But now you're in a multi-pronged world with still the personal computing space. Data center, aka cloud, has gotten a ton bigger. You have autos, you have phones, you have Internet of Things. Basically everything runs on a chip. And that is great news for TSM because it allows them to spread their risk profile and potentially jump from category to category as those categories reach growth cycles. So long story short, outside of the political risk, which is very hard to measure, and the competition from Samsung, which I'm convinced there's room for two to play here, you have a lot of positives, at least in the short term for TSM. You also have this interesting world with Biden coming in, and there has been a lot of people knocking on his door talking about, can we incentivize chip production in America? What are the possibilities with America incentivizing chip makers like Samsung and TSM to build bigger holdings here in America, possibly building complete foundries? We're getting to a point now where chip production and supply is of national interest to keep it as much in-house as possible, because the next war or the next Cold War, whatever you want to call it, chip production will be at the heart of that. This is one reason that China has focused on building their own chip producers. But when you compare America to China as far as in-house production within the country, America is still at a liability phase in that regard. All right, so that's the bull and bear case for TSM coming into 2021. Let's take a look at the stock to see what is the valuation and is it a good time to buy. All right, looking at the core statistics, Yahoo is saying 61.91 on the PE ratio. They have not updated the trailing 12 months EPS since earnings. That number here is 339. Which brings your PE down to about a 38. We'll look at forward PEs here in a second. On the dividend side, you're getting 1.26% of today's price. All right, looking at the past several years of PE ratios, if you go back to even just 17 and 18, the trailing PE for TSM was sort of in the 16 to 18 range. Back in December of 19, you had a 26 PE followed by a forward PE of 22. And you can see where we are today at 38 and 35. It's much higher than the PEs that we have seen historically for this company. Now, you can make the argument that these older years, maybe TSM didn't have the same roadmap to advancement, but no matter how you dice it, if you look across the chip manufacturing industry, definitely running hot at this point. Now, if we look ahead to what analysts are projecting for this current year, TSM runs a sort of standard fiscal calendar, January through December. Right now, you've got 4 analysts coming in at 398. Remember that last year, or 2020, was 339. This number, in my opinion, grows as the year goes on, particularly with the shortages and things that we already see on the radar. So I'm going to give it about a 5% boost and just say it lands at 410, 415. That puts your forward PE in the neighborhood of 33 for the end of 2021. So again, definitely higher than average. If we look ahead to 2022, we've only got one analyst in here so far at 457. I'm going to say that this is easily a 5 on the EPS side. Again, most analysts are conservative, and then as the years progress on, they continue to add to the EPS. So let's just say 5 for the sake of argument. And in that scenario, at the end of 2022, you are looking at a forward PE of 27. All right, so Taiwan Semi today, heading into 2021, share price at 138. Look, it's not the worst deal in the world with all the other valuations running high across the market. But I do think there's an opportunity to kind of wait this one out. There's a lot of positive news, which is great here in 2021. But I think it's riding high on positives. And I think just a couple negatives, even something as simple as, some of the China tensions maybe escalating, I think could bring this one down an easy $10 or $20. and you could start a new position there. For me, my cost basis sits around $84 after I bought a couple shares last week. And my number one goal right now is to try to get into this one and finish my position for the foreseeable future under $99. I'm happy to walk away at 99 and just let it sit and know that these guys are running hot on the technology side. And I think that their advancements and potential for improvements carries it a long way in the 3 to 5 year outlook. But I don't want to be averaged in over $100 on this one because I think it takes a little bit away from the growth potential. All right, so that's my take on Taiwan Semi heading into 2021. Let me know what you think in the comments, and are you buying TSM this year? I'd be interested to hear that as well. Thanks as always for watching. Don't forget to give me a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. We'll see you on the next video.